Well, joining me now is doctoral researcher for the Institute for Democracy, Citizenship and Public Policy in Africa at the University of Cape Town, Leonard Mbulle-Nziege. Thanks very much for being with us on the programme. How surprising do you find this coup?
Good morning, and thank you for having me on your platform. It came as a shock because the fervor leading up to the Gabonese elections was less exciting compared to previous elections in 2009 and 2016, and it seemed like it was a foregone conclusion. Even the leading opposition candidate, Abo Ondo, he was less. He was a politician who was less at the forefront compared to previous leading opposition candidates such as Jean Ping in 2016 and Andre Obam in 2009. So it was seemingly a foregone conclusion that Bongo would win and proceed with the third term. So the announcement of the coup came as very much a big surprise.
I suppose it does come, doesn't it, following that coup we had in Niger just last month, follows other coups as well in Mali, Burkina Faso. I mean, do you think it shows the declining influence of France in the region?
Well, I think we have to look more towards domestic factors. There is definitely coup contagion happening across the continent, particularly in West and Central Africa, and in particular, the Francophone nations. But then it stems largely from domestic grievances as well as institutional failures at the regional level. As we've seen, ECOWAS, African Union, and other institutions such as the Economic Community of Central African States and CEMAC, they have been very reactive and very lukewarm in their reactions towards these coups. So this in itself has emboldened many of the military leaders because they have capitalized on the domestic grievances, such as prevalent corruption, such as rigged elections, and youth unemployment, so on and so forth. And they also understand that even in the event that they undertake these military takeovers, the response from the international community is minimal.
So why do they think then that the military will be able to do any better?
Well, because the military has been largely seen as a non-partisan institution. For example, in Gabon, since 1958, the PDG, the ruling party, the Parti Démocratique Gabonais, has been in power. And research by the Afrobarometer Research Network stipulated that between 80 to 90% of Gabonese believe that public and private sector officials are corrupt. So in that regard, they believe that the individuals who have the reins of the political and economic power in the country cannot attend to their desires and livelihoods. And as a result, they look towards the military. In that same regard, the same Afrobarometer Research Network conducted in the same survey that 66% of Gabonese believe that the military will do a better job of running the country in the event that elected leaders were failing, which we have seen in this regard.
We saw in the report just a moment ago Ali Bongo appealing for help from his supporters, both home and abroad. At the moment, though, there seems to be a little enthusiasm to help him at the moment.
There seems very little enthusiasm. As you noted, there has been growing anti-French sentiment across, Francophone Africa. And France has been the foremost international influence in Gabon from the pre-independence to the post-independence era. It's actually, one can call it the center of the so-called Franc-Afrique paradigm. But then the optics would look very bad on France if they were to intervene on behalf of a regime which has been in power for 57 years. Bongo, over the past few years, has also edged closer towards non-traditional partners. Last year, Gabon joined the Commonwealth of Nations, and China has become the largest investor in the country. Nevertheless, China is a country which doesn't have a tradition of intervening in countries' political affairs, and with respect to the Commonwealth, it would be unlikely that they would intervene in a situation whereby it's a family dynasty which is being put to an end.
Leonard Mbulle-Nziege, thanks very much for joining us there from the University of Cape Town.